This is Madison Square Basement. This episode is Treble Boosters. My name is Michael.
My name's Aaron.
What did we learn?
The three treble boosters we compared were your R2R, which was 2020?
2021,
2020. No, maybe it was, 2022. And it had the OC44 transistor and Mullard, yeah. And all the tone caps were vitamin Qs. Sprague vitamin Qs. We compared that with my R2R, which is an earlier one. And mine has the AC107 transistor.
Do you know who makes that?
Philips.
Mm-hmm.
And my tone caps are kind of a mismatched set of stuff. And then we compared the Analogman Beano Boost, and the transistor in that is a GE. And the tone caps in that are just orange drops, right?
Orange drops, or are they those bent over kind of like maroon looking caps that are like in the Astrotone?
I think they're just like bright orange. I mean, I don't know.
I'm not
if
sure.
They're, but
I'd have to open it. When they have Mullards and stuff, they're way more.
Well, let's talk about price for a second. Your R2R brand new is like $410, I think.
I think so.
If you can get it brand new.
Right.
And there's wait time. I'm not sure how long the wait would be.
I don't know if it's
batch.
wait or if it's just the fact that, he's like literally not building it at the time. You know, or it takes a certain amount of time before he builds them.
And then used, they're like around $350, maybe a little more, a little less.
Sort of. People are asking $450, you know.
Mine's probably more so in the $300 to $250 range.
Mm-hmm. And people would ask for mine and get somewhere in the vicinity between $315 to $350.
And what's the Analogman type of used price?
Yeah, so I would say all day this pedal with this transistor is probably, around 220, 200. Oh, yeah. You were saying these, I don't know if are those considered orange drops just because they're orange?
I feel like they look like orange drops to me.
Do they?
Okay, what was your guess for the price of a brand new Beano Boost?
I would say 220 to 240.
185.
That's unbelievable. We have to say too, this General Electric transistor in here is black, kind of looks like a black Monopoly Man hat. And it has this kind of like amber, like what looks like melted like violin rosin or something. Or like
some kind of glue maybe.
Like glue. It looks kind of like glue or something you'd see in like an automotive or like coming out of your car or something. Like an oil. It kind of looks like amber colored motor oil or something. But it's sort of, I don't know if it's coming out of the transistor or if it's just on the side of it. But the Analogman is beautifully made too. I mean, tag board, I guess you'd consider it. Beautiful inside. And the R2Rs were made incredibly well inside. They have like a bus wire. The pots in the R2Rs are old, right?
Mine was, yeah.
Pretty sure mine was too. I'd say in all of these tests we've done, we already knew at the very beginning, having played and having owned a lot of Analogman pedals, that they were kind of the best. But man, it's shocking to play OC44. I just bought it because I've always wanted to try one. I've always wanted to try the real deal transistor, the old stuff. And it was beautiful and it sounded great, but you always come back to the fact that the Analogman stuff is it's just kind of the best pedals ever made. Prices are very different. Very different.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking 185 versus brand new versus 410 brand new,
Yeah.
that's a wide gulf. And I understand the R2R stuff is a thing of beauty, and the parts inside are really difficult to obtain.
Yep. And there's something to be said for that. You shouldn't think of it as just paying for the part. The fact that an OC44 is so valuable at this point because they're like non-existent. You have to think about it that you're paying for the person who actually found you an OC44 who it works. And it's like, not only does it work, but it's perfectly tuned to be in a treble booster. How many of those are around anymore?
Right, because even the guy Chris at R2R who builds the stuff has to find a decent amount of OC44s because some of them aren't going to be able to work in a pedal.
I would say the vast majority. And
So-
at this point, are we picking through OC44s that have already been used and stuff? You know,
I swear he does use stuff from old equipment that's been
well, yeah,
used.
old equipment, but I mean, like it was originally in a, tape deck. Then it was in something else, and now we're buying it again.
I have no clue, honestly, but
I just find it hard to believe that you're even finding these things. They were like, I know a lot of them were made in the time, they were used in things, but how many Mullered OC44s are just sitting around in the world? It just doesn't seem real.
very few. And hats off to R2R for making this stuff available,
Yeah, we're
So-
able to try it.
You have to factor that into the cost. $410 doesn't seem crazy to me, for what it is.
Not for someone to make a living. What do treble boosters sound like?
Most people's experience with treble boosters is like that they're harsh and they accentuate kind of like a cocked wah pedal frequency.
Yeah, or people's experiences, it's like the most amazing Brian May sound.
Into a specific type of amp and stuff.
Yeah.
But I would say that both the R2Rs and the Analogman have a lot more versatility than that with the use of, like other tone caps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you want to have either an actual Rangemaster, a Dallas Rangemaster sit on your amp, or have the amp top versions built by somebody, I guess you're using it for one thing. You're using it, like they say, into a dark amp or something. And if you want to try to use this and like fit into a band and like use a treble booster for multiple styles, then you're going to want to have some options.
And
the
the more full range settings on all the pedals are definitely a little more like fuzzy and usable.
Yeah.
For the majority of the time,
Yeah, but if you go to the Rangemaster setting, you do get into that really apparently shelved off bass, notched, like
Upper
soaring sound, you know?
yeah.
And like that sound is really cool, but if you roll down your volume and your guitar gets thinner, how do you go thinner from there, you know? There's like nothing else left to lose.
Yeah, and I guess like maybe with certain guitars, if they get really dark when you roll them off, it might be cool, but...
That's one thing at the end of this we were saying. I've realized after trying all these treble boosters that it really is humbuckers. That like this sound seems so made for. Like a guitar that is a great sounding guitar but is really thick sounding. And if you were able to dial in the treble booster where... maybe you didn't use it on the full Rangemaster setting still, but you had kind of a middle ground kind of tone cap setting and you were able to set the gain where it's not really explosive, then on a big sounding humbucker guitar, that really would do something you would need it to do live, you know?
Yeah, give this huge sounding pickup some sculpted frequency.
And also... there's kind of like a signature sound of the game of these pedals.
Yeah, which is something to talk about. My understanding of the output control is that it's post all of the gain that's being made inside of the pedal. So it's basically just a output control, not like I'm driving the transistor harder control. The gain's the same at 0 and full blast. It's just that your amp's obviously going to be overdriving way more.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I think. I think hearing the pedals, that you hear that, even when it's just cracked on.
Yeah.
It could be lower than unity gain and volume, but there's actual gain being made and stuff.
Definitely.
You're driving the transistor. Through doing these tests, I think we both found that like the treble booster is an amazing sound that is kind of difficult to use in context.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of music you play, but I will say, like, for people that play like a real aggressive music, it's kind of a shame that those people use like whatever distortion pedals, because that kind of sound would be so much cooler. But if you played even like Scorpions music or something, like I maybe they use treble boosters, but that kind of thing,
Yeah, it'd be great for that.
really would sound great for that. Did Ritchie Blackmore actually use a treble booster? I don't really know. I don't think
It's a famous user of a treble booster.
I mean, sometimes Ritchie Blackmore sounds like a treble booster, but it also sounds like an insane bridge pickup strat into a Marshall, I know for sure Ritchie Blackmore was using his tape deck because I've seen videos of him with the tape deck, Like that, it's just it's a sound that is so specific that it just sticks out a lot. And like, it depends on what kind of music you're playing and what kind of songs you're playing. And I, more than anyone, would hope that you could play like some sort of country song and use a treble booster, but
you can
maybe could,
but it's just difficult to integrate within a rig, I think.
Yeah.
Like if you're also using a couple overdrive pedals and you're also using delay and maybe some of these other things, it's just hard to see like, when would I step on the treble booster and have everything shift?
Right.
Why wouldn't I just step on this, overdrive that's just going to make things louder or something? I guess we could start with yours because I felt like that was overall the biggest sounding and the coolest sounding gain.
So mine had this like luxurious thing, and on the farthest to the left settings where it's allowing the most bass in, I would say it was even like really emphasizing bass, where it was getting almost subby,
almost scooped.
Yeah,
because of how much bass was being added.
There was so much bass, like subby stuff coming through the amp.
But a killer sound.
An amazing sound in itself. And then basically one click over on both the R2Rs, it's basically like one click over is kind of the most usable, most flat, setting. But my pedal had this gain character that was sort of like a fuzz, the most kind of rounded off,
smoothest.
It had the highest high end and the lowest low end of all three.
Definitely the biggest sounding, but not lacking in mids.
No, and the character of the gain was different than both of them. It was like the most easy on the ears and the most like natural or something, like an amp,
Yeah, the character of like, it's weird, the size of the grain of the gain was like smaller than the other two. It was like more grains of gain.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because then yours sounded grainy. It had like a texture to it.
Yeah, so mine's the AC-107, much closer in tone to the Analogman, and more notched than yours in general, no matter where you were set.
Yeah.
It had a more notched frequency.
And just had this kind of rougher gain.
Going back to yours, the cleanup on the guitar was fantastic. I mean, it does make the volume control extremely sensitive to change. So, even knocking it back one number from 10 to 9 or 9 to 8 is a drastic change.
Yeah, it's like hyper.
Which could be really cool if you were into using it like that. Mine, I felt like the cleanup maybe wasn't quite as good. It didn't get quite as clean.
Yeah.
But when you were rolled off, had a cool overdrivey type of character.
Yeah, and I remember that about yours. That yours, I actually, even though the cleanup on mine was so amazing, I kind of thought that yours was more usable because when you rolled down, there was still this kind of graininess that sounds more like an amp, you know?
Yeah, but in general, mine had less lows.
It was just honkier. It had like a honky thing to it.
Yeah, and I guess that leads us to the Analogman. The Analogman is also honkier.
Yeah.
But has a great cleanup. We kind of matched settings based on the Analogman because it's more limited.
Yeah, and that's another thing. The Analogman has 3 switches.
Full,
middle, or range master, basically. And from what I remember hearing of the dude from R2R was talking about how that's different. You know, that's like bleeding to ground or something. But his has full-size caps for each tone selection, which is just a different way of doing it, I believe.
Yeah, that might be, but the difference in tone, I think, I don't think the Analogman sounded like way smaller or something.
No. But the Analogman by far had the most usable sweep of its single knob of volume. I mean, like you can set it low and it's lower gain. You know, you can bring it up and it's more gain.
Yeah, the one thing about the R2Rs is like noon seems almost like unity. Everything below noon seems like you're getting quieter when you click the pedal on. And the Analogman is like way more like when you turn it on, it's unity. And it's almost all just up from there.
Yeah, but it just seemed more usable. Like my volume knob on mine, it's like from the moment you cracked it on, it was already so distorted.
Yeah, which is, I wonder if that's mostly the OC44 breaks up more or something.
Yeah, don't know.
But yeah, I would say that if I had to like pick a favorite, it'd be the OC44. And then if I was going to actually buy a treble booster to use, it might be the Analogman just because of price and the fact that it was like 90% the sound, you know?
Well, but also just like a little bit more usable.
I don't know why you would think it was more usable.
Just because I feel like the Analogman had a lower gain sound in it than the R2Rs. You could turn it on and have it be incrementally loud, whereas the R2Rs were basically like, once you turn them on, it was such a drastic sound, a big change in your sound, you know? And that's the other thing is, you never know if you're really talking about the difference in transistors here, because that whole system is so interactive. You change one thing and it's different. So if the 2 R2Rs, you just switched the transistor, well, they might not even be tweaked to allow that transistor to be in there, or it might have the wrong gain character or something. So
I thought about that when we were looking at them the other day. If we just took the OC44 and just soldered it into the Analogman, would it sound like the R2R?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't think so at all.
I guess I have to commend both companies for running a small business with, you know, like really, really hard to obtain parts and still being really cool.
Yeah.
Like I talked to Chris for a while about the treble booster and he's insanely cool. And I've had multiple times where I just send Analog Mike an email and he emails back within a couple days.
Yeah.
You know, I remember being 15 and emailing him and probably saying the dumbest stuff in the world and him being like, cool.
I know.
That's hard to find. Someone who runs a small business has to deal with all that and is just cool to the customer.
Yeah, really crazy. Analogman has given treble boosters to, or, you know, TS9 pedals and stuff to like Tony Iommi. And cool people, just all sorts of great people. And
yeah, but still emails you.
Yeah. So I would say the build quality, you know, they're kind of similar. For Chris to be able to do what he's doing is pretty unbelievable.
I mean, the inside of the pedals is just crazy.
It's beautiful. to see that quality of work in any field at this point. And, at this point in time, to see that kind of quality and attention to detail is really cool.
Extremely cool. So as far as the clips, we did a full range clip using the Les Paul and a range master setting clip using the Les Paul. And then we rolled off on the volume to see the cleanup in those settings. Is that it?
Pretty much, yeah.
The amp we were playing through was my Headstrong Princeton. And can you think of anything else?
No.
Okay.